Wonderful, thank you. And because I'm so vain and because I do have theater experience, I want light on my face. Thank you very much. All this history, what I'm talking about is something that really takes place now, took place just a few years ago. I was told about a group that was making paper out of their military uniforms by a friend of mine in an art group in Maplewood, New Jersey, and then she told me that they were doing that the Newark paper was doing an article and they needed people in the background. So I came out. I was really enticed mostly by the fact that I was going to be able to drive across Rattlesnake Bridge Road. This seemed like a high point in my life. So I came out, and the newspaper didn't show up, but other people did. And I sort of got hooked. I have buried much of my own past. I have forgotten, in some ways, my own military service. I served long before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was even a vague dream. So I lived a very covert life as a military person, and I continued to do that here. But the impact of being with these people has made a difference. Process for combat paper, July 10th, 2013. We walk into a room that was really made for other things. One or two at a time as a rule, in no particular order, in no particular pattern. Some are older, some are younger, some are women, some men, some are wounded one way, some another. We walk into a room we've been allowed to use for our own arcane purposes, our own peculiar work. And we say hello and joke, maybe have a cup of coffee as we approach, sidle up to really our apparently unproductive, obsessive, laborious task. In this room, we have some uniforms, the military kind. Some are ours, some are not. Some we salvaged from the scathing and impersonal, danger-ridden places that the puppet masters like to call the theater of war. Some were given up by next of kin. Some were picked from racks at thrift stores where, like outgrown shells of hermit crabs, these garments will wash up and pool in rows on flimsy hangers. These uniforms we now, our little group, gather round and start to snip and tear and undo. And we idly talk as the busy-handed will of this and that, a baby, a trip, a new pair of shoes, a headache, a pot of delicious beans. And without particular signal, our common history, many-faceted, spanning scores of years, touching one continent or another, begins to re-emerge. Perhaps today, snip, 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 it will be an older story brought to mind, something acted out in torrid foreign swaths of green and brown, where the enemy has robbed the orphan of the bag of crackers you just gave her, and then before you know it, she herself has vanished too. And all the while, unannounced, some chemical that's allegedly your own ally is seeping its way into your bones to work a strange, malign magic. Perhaps today, snip, snip, it will be a newer story of sitting by a mythic river and watching helpless as a clumsy, heavy cargo truck slides inexorably down the bank and flips itself, wheels in the air, over like some ungainly bug, sinking quick into the turgid water until all the young inside, all in their uniforms, are drowned. And the younger ones among us say they find in hearing tales from times before they were even born of a sense of their own history, of their identity, their heritage, their role in a still expanding tradition, while the older ones among us find a kind of awful awe in hearing from a different century the same familiar plot. And from the lives of women and men young enough to be our grandkids, young enough to have needed shielding, a protective arm, a place of warm shelter, which it was impossible for anyone to give. Slowly, steadily, these uniforms, These artifices, built as fabric lies to hide even from ourselves our inborn basic identities. These uniforms come undone, separate into drifting continental plates of poly-cotton fabric, and then break down even further into strips and into bits, and then into a watery mix, all shapeless, blurry, like half-remembered dreams. And this is the transition point, that metamorphic place where one reality ebbs away and another takes its place, where everything we mean when we say uniform, even, flat, indistinguishable one from another, interchangeable, apparently without end, disappears. And something else emerges, made up of the very same stuff, but profoundly rearranged. The ranks of warp and weft undone, the rigid pulling tension that gives the cloth its strength relieved, released. The twisted threads themselves chafed down to single fibers, adrift without rank, without differentiation. And now these liberated bits of string are brought together in a different way, the way that we, while disassembling all this cloth, have found among ourselves a life-entwining companionship. And where we began with a set of fabric disguises, now we have flat and blank, the stuff not unlike what hornets make when they build their nests, just paper, you might shrug, but waiting, as paper so patiently does, for something else, something odd, something unique, no doubt, to happen. How unspectacularly wonderful, how ordinary and miraculous all at once, that identity-suppressing clothes have become the platform and the field on which each one of us now can tell our single tale, our own version, however different, however unofficial, how oblique, how queer, of what went down out there, of what goes on in here, for and by and among us all, in a room that was really made for other things.